Hello. Two. Check. Two. Hello, folks. Nice to see you for the first time. Nice to see you for the very first time. Anything that you saw before I just showed up? No, you didn't. How about that? No, you didn't see it. You saw nothing. You saw nothing. How's it going, folks? How are you doing? Welcome back. It's another episode of TRRS. What episode is it? I don't know. Never really kept track. There's been so many fucking episodes, though. Just like a ludicrous amount. Just a ludicrous number of episodes. How's everybody doing? How are you feeling? Sound off in the comments. Good? Bad? Anything going on we need to talk about? Talk to me. Rob's here now, okay? Why are you not out hunting moral mushrooms right now? I don't know. I've never been into the moral mushroom lifestyle. I'm more of an immoral mushroom person, if you ask me. Ha ha! Ha ha! Matt the Quick's adequate, okay. I guess that's good. That's not so bad. Adequate is fine. Sometimes that's the best we can do. Sin Chow feels fantastic. That's fantastic. It's fantastic that you feel fantastic. Barely satisfactory. Okay, that's less good. Hello, Dakadoon. My cat is obsessed with trying to find a spider. He saw next to my desk, so he's been searching for hours for it. That guy's long gone. That spider's long gone now. He's gonna have to give up. Pranksters on coffee cup number 3. Very nice. We love the caffeine, folks, don't we? We love drinking coffee for its caffeinated properties. Old Dutch, hello? What's up? Coffee stays winning. You know, right? And like the whole thing, coffee's for closers. I don't agree with that. I'm not a closer. Look at me. Do I look like a fucking closer to you? No, and I still enjoy my coffee. Enjoying my coffee. I still enjoy my coffee every single day, despite not closing shit. Had some Vietnamese drip coffee with condensed milk. That sounds fucking fantastic. I nabbed a good deal on Kijiji on a cool 80s FM synth, a Yamaha PSR 36. Can't wait to play with that. Sounds awesome. That sounds great. Coffee's for procrastinators. Let's see if I can do the speech. I was watching this speech the other day. Let's see if I can do it as good as Alec Baldwin, one of the greatest actors of all time. Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. You think I'm fucking with you? I'm not fucking with you. I'm here from downtown. I'm here from Mitch and Murray. And I'm on a mission of mercy. Your name's Levine? You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch? I don't gotta sit here and listen to this shit. You certainly don't, pal, because the good news is you're fired. The bad news is all of you've got just 1 week to regain your jobs, starting with tonight. Starting with tonight's sit. Oh, have I got your attention now? Good. Because we're adding a little something to this month's sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anyone want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. Get the picture? You laughing now? You got leads. Mitch and Murray paid good money to get their names to sell them. You can't close the leads you're given, then you can't close shit. You are shit. Hit the bricks, pal, and beat it, because you are going out. The leads are weak. The leads are weak. The fucking leads are weak. You're weak. I've been in this business 15 years. What's your name? Fuck you, that's my name. You know why, mister? You drove a Hyundai to get here. I drove an 80,000 red BMW that's parked right outside. That's my name. And your name is You're Wanting. You can't play in the man's game. You can't close them, then go home and tell your wife your troubles. Because only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted. Some salty language I'm going to skip there. We've moved past that as a society. A, B, C. A, always. B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. AIDA. Attention, interest, decision, action. Attention. Do I have your attention? Interest. Are you interested? I know you are, because it's fuck or walk. You close or you hit the bricks. Decision. Have you made your decision for Christ? And action. AIDA. Get out there. You got the prospects coming in. You think they came in here to get out of the rain? A guy don't walk on the lot lest he wants to buy. They're sitting out there waiting to give you their money. Are you going to take it? Are you man enough to take it? What's your problem, pal? Do I need to keep going with this? There's the whole last section there. What did we think about that? Was that all right? It's not Alec Baldwin. I mean, he's really like, say what you want about Alec Baldwin, but he really did crush it with that one. Kind of sad I missed the reason this is happening. I think someone mentioned coffee. And I had watched that speech the other day on YouTube, and I thought about the coffee is for closers thing. And sometimes I like to act. I don't know. I think acting is kind of interesting. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a fun little exercise, frankly. That's literally what happened. Someone said the word coffee. That's right. And then I did that. I think it's kind of a fun little exercise to do. I don't know. All chatters have been assigned a monologue to perform. That's right. You see this watch, chat? See this watch I'm wearing? This watch costs more than your car. I made $970,000 in Twitch sub commissions last year. How much you make? You see, pal, that's who I am, and you're nothing. You're a nice guy? I don't give a shit. Good father? Fuck you. Fuck you. Go and play with your kids. You want to work here? Close. You think I'm too hard on you? You think this is abuse? You can't take this. How can you take the abuse you get on a sit? You don't like it? Leave. I can go out there tonight with the leads and materials you've got and make myself $15,000. Tonight, in 2 hours. Can you? Go and do likewise. AIDA. Get mad, you son of a bitches. Get mad. You want to know what it takes to sell real estate? It takes brass balls to sell real estate. Go and do likewise, gents. The money's out there. You pick it up, it's yours. You don't, I got no sympathy for you. You want to go out there on those sits tonight and close? Close! It's yours. If not, you're going to be shining my shoes. And you know what you'll be saying? A bunch of losers sitting around in a bar. Oh yeah, I used to be a salesman. It's a tough racket. These are the new leads. These are the Glengarry leads. And to you, they're gold. And you don't get them. Why? Because to give them to you is just throwing them away. They're for closers. I'd wish you all good luck, but you wouldn't know what to do with it if you got it. And scene. I got no sympathy for it. Give me a break. Okay. And then now that that's out of my system, someone just came in. Someone like some lurker came into the chat for the first time. I was like, this is scary. Who's this guy? Who's this guy? He's being super mean to everybody. Oh my goodness. Can you say in your Alec Baldwin voice, oh fuck, what have I done? I didn't know the gun was real. This is everyone's fault but mine. I think that's what he said in that moment. Anyway, that's an interesting start to the stream. That was fun. That was kind of fun. It's fun to run lines. It is. I find acting kind of fascinating, you know? I'm not going to claim to be any good at acting. One of my favorite genres of like TikToks or YouTube videos, like the TikTok algorithm now has realized that I'm into this kind of content, and I get served it up now a lot, is like weirdo actors like talking about their craft and stuff. I find that super fascinating. No, that was not from memory. I was reading it. That's why I was looking on. If it was from memory, I would have been looking right into the camera to really sell it. I've never seen him like this before. You better slub. I'm not joking. That's right. Gen X Bushy. You don't know what this guy's going to do. You don't know what I'm capable of, chat. I've never even seen that movie. I've seen scenes from that movie. I've seen the Baldwin speech. I've seen like Jack Lemmon showing up hat in hand, trying to sell the husband who's just not interested, and it's so pathetic.
Some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Grom, thank you for the raid. Thank you for the raid, Grom. How's the stream today? Welcome, Gromites. Welcome to all the Gromites. Seriously, change your name. It's trash, and I hate it. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that, but you figured it out. You got here. It's just Rousseau. It's just the French style. You know, Roussseau. It's simple. Just like the philosopher. You know, if you read philosophy, you know, you'd be able to remember this kind of stuff. Yes, I remember the Alec Baldwin. I was just running lines. I was just doing the Alec Baldwin's monologue from Glengarry Glen Ross. I've seen that. I've never seen the movie. I've seen that scene. I've seen the Jack Lemmon scene where he's just like super pathetic, trying to sell the disinterested husband. Yeah, it's like real estate or like timeshares or something. I'm not totally sure what it is they're selling. Monologue Monday. Yeah, that could be a new segment. How many energy drinks have you had today? You seem fully pepped up. I've just been drinking coffee. I just drank a pot of coffee. I got one of those, like, what do you call that? Like the little thing with like it's yay big, and you put in the coffee, you put in the boiling water, and then you have the like little plunger thing on the top. It's like French press. There we go. It's not a huge amount. It's like 2.5 cups maybe. It is Victory Day. It's a great day. It's a great day, and I think the reaction from all these former Soviet states about Victory Day and about the way this doesn't get acknowledged in our nations, I think it really is very indicative of like a lot of things about the way the post-war foreign policy has been. We're going to get into that though, Grom. We're going to get into this stuff. I got all kinds of stuff I can get into about this. From an awfully hot coffee pot. That's right, yeah. That's correct. I forgot my music was playing the whole time I was doing that monologue just now. I learned from Steven Spielberg that Tom Hanks won World War II. That is correct. That's true. We watched the Victory Day March, not their best work, I must say. Yeah. Oh. What are some other famous monologues I could do? Like I was saying, though, it is one of the genres of content that I'm the most interested in. I like hearing weirdo actors talk about acting and the whole craft of it. I'm really kind of interested in that. Chin chin. Watched Dead Ringers last night. Jeremy Irons, 1988. I don't think I've ever seen that one. Last night I did watch the first half of John Woo's Hard Boiled, which I've not seen for a very long time. I don't even know if I've ever seen the whole thing. I've definitely seen The Killer. That was my main, like, John Woo Chow Yun-Fat movie that I remember watching. I don't know if I've ever seen all of Hard Boiled, though, but I watched the first half of that last night. I'm going to watch the second half tonight. Fucking amazing action. Like, it's just unbelievable, the action that they captured in those Hong Kong action movies. It's just unbelievable. And you see the squibs, you know, there's so much squibs. There's so many amazing stunts. These big, intricate, you know, shots with so many people and so much stuff flying around and shit blowing up. And Chow Yun-Fat, you know, in that era, is just about the coolest motherfucker that you could possibly imagine. I don't know. There's probably been people that have been cooler, but, like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to name any right now. Chow Yun-Fat in that era with those John Woo movies is just a fucking god. Squib Game. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Watched The Host last night. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Watching Parasite the other day kind of made me want to rewatch The Host. You know, we talked a lot about DPRK yesterday, and it is really interesting. You know, all these big, like, South Korean films that come out that seem to have this kind of contempt, not only for the economic system that's been kind of forced on them, and the way that's, like, immiserating people, but also, like, American imperialism. The Host has this big, like, anti-American imperialist subtext to it, or it's barely even subtext. It's basically just text. I loved Parasite. I thought it was fantastic. You know, but we're always told that South Korea, you know, it's like, it's doing great. It's thriving. It's this, like, big, got a big GDP. All the ways that we indicate, like, whether a capitalist society is succeeding, South Korea is one of these places. You always see that map, that, like, fake map showing the lights turned on, like, above the parallel and below. You always see that. But there's a lot of art coming out of South Korea that seem to indicate that there's Squid Game is another one of these things that seems to Democracy Index. It scores very high on the Democracy Index. But there's a lot of art coming out of South Korea that seems to indicate that people aren't super happy with this. They're not super happy with this economic system that's been foisted on them. They're not super happy about being militarily occupied by the imperialist dogs of the United States of America for the last 80 years. Turns out there's maybe a few people that are not as into that as maybe we're sometimes told. Democracy is when you get forced to work 16-hour days by a company run by cults. That is right. That's where it's not what we tell them to say. I know. It's a little bit rude. You know, we're very clear that they're not allowed to say that kind of stuff, and they keep on doing it. You know? That's not good. Yeah, I was going to bring up Cool J. Remember the freak out when people found out the Gangnam Style guy said, kill those fucking Yankees. I was going to bring up Psy as well. It seems like there's a lot of pop culture coming out of South Korea that's pretty hostile to both capitalism and the United States of America. They're free to assemble pizza boxes so they can get their cell service turned back on. Exactly. I'd never get pulled into a cult. Me neither. Me neither. Nor would I lead one. Couldn't be me. It was a good apple. It's wild how many people took away the wrong lessons from Squid Game. I know. It speaks to like how like people are so fucking illiterate that like even when you have these people just like not even having subtext but just having like text, you know, just banging them over the fucking head with the message, and these fucking Americans, boorish Americans, are like, I don't get it. Is this about how communism is bad? I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it's about. You, Blenderman, you like that? Yeah, I put that together this morning. That's the thing. I wanted to get a proper lunch, but I didn't have a ton of time. I did some grocery shopping earlier. I was editing the podcast and doing that. So I just have my apple. I'll probably have to figure something else out in a little bit. It's sort of like how Three Stripes, The South Will Rise Again, Vietnamese refugees were preyed upon by veteran Klansmen with the same motto in the American South. The only thing more dangerous than being an enemy of the imperialists is being their ally. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people confused about who the parasites were in Parasite. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it definitely, like, yeah, there's some really interesting stuff in there as well. About how, like, not only is, like, it wasn't clear who the parasites were, but also the whole idea about the working class people who could work together, you know, were at each other's throats. And the way that that's kind of, like, part of the economic model that's been foisted on them, and they don't have the kind of class solidarity that they should, because it's been completely, like, erased from their culture. Squid Game was more overt with it. Well, that's what I mean. It's like it couldn't be more clear. It couldn't be more clear what it's about. And people are just like, no, I don't get it. Surely this can't be about how capitalism is bad. Look at how capitalism is like so working so well in South Korea. That can't be what it's about. Could work together, but some of them are bowing to an altar of bourgeois politicians in the basement. Yeah, absolutely. Going through these elaborate rituals to send them like thank you messages. Did you see that insane clip from The Good Doctor that was making the rounds? Did I see it? Jay. I am a surgeon, Jay. I am a surgeon. I am a surgeon. Cool Jay. I am a surgeon. I'm really acting a lot today. Really showing off my range today. Oh, you're talking about the trans one. Yeah, I'd seen that a couple weeks ago. Rob, you better step up the juice. Another channel I mod for is doing gardening to 5 viewers, and they're slamming you in content. They're
count
growing
on me.
apples.
You're gonna have good old Rob
shit.
to talk you through all this.
I have to step up my game. Diego, thank you for the gifted sub to Matrons Militia. Diego, here a serious question for you. Do you want me to call attention to the next gifted sub if that gifted sub does come? Do you want me to call attention to it and make a big deal of it, or are you embarrassed? And do you want me to just drop it? Cap Cannabis, eating apples over growing apples. Cap Cannabis, what's your favorite kind of apple? You got a preference? Honey Crisp. Well, I'll tell you what, Captain Cannabis. I'm enjoying a nice Honey Crisp right at this very moment. Delicious. Delicious. Weed name equals Apple Bro. Hell yeah. It's funny because I have smoked weed out of an apple before, but I didn't do it until I was like an adult. I never did it in my like early 20s, like hot couch lifestyle times, which is, I feel like the time when you really do that kind of stuff. Was just listening to the big apple juice panic of the 80s. Real weird stuff. Can you enlighten me, Envy Adams? What is the apple juice panic of the 80s? I was born in the 80s, but I have no recollection of this. Did it have something to do with this? Was it like the satanic thing? Like the satanic daycares are giving drugged apple juice to little kids? Something like that?
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Diego, thank you for another gifted sub. Diego, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support that you've shown to me and this show and this community. I know sometimes it doesn't sound like I appreciate this stuff, but I really, really do. It means a lot to me that there's people out there that feel like supporting the work that I do on here. It's really the difference between like being able to do this as a hobby and actually being able to like focus on it and earn a small living from it. And I love you. Okay. Excuse me. At 1,000 subs, you can write a monologue for Rob to perform. That was one Wayne's World. I love you, man. Delivery. I love you, man. No, I mean it. I love you. No, you don't, man. From the friendship triangle to the love triangle. There we go. Wait. I don't know if we want that. No, I did not take shrooms before the stream. No, I did not. A lot of acting and drama, that's right. I have moved past my psychedelic age, okay? You know, I appreciated doing that stuff, 20 years ago. I had a lot of great times. I think it did kind of expand my consciousness. I think it's actually relatively important for some people to go through those phases. It's kind of part of the first step in kind of unprogramming yourself from what you've been into, the propaganda that you've been inundated with your whole life. I'm past that now, though. I'm not going back to doing psychedelics anymore. I put in my time doing that kind of stuff. I've heard some good things about like microdosing it, though. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I could be one of those guys. Excuse me. Look at this fucking book. Chat, like, look at the letters. It's like breathtaking, you know? And I'm very happy to have this stream and chat, which constantly reminds me that there are cool people out there and that I'm not the only one ever so slightly upset about this neoliberal hellscape in which we live. Well, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Then all you do is talk about microdosing. That's right. I could have the rare combination of a microdosing psilocybin. What is it? Fuck. Psilocybin. And I could do intermittent fasting at the same time. Psilocybin. I could microdose psilocybin and do intermittent fasting at the same time. And that's the only thing I would ever talk about. Psilocybin. I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't think I've ever had to say out loud. I could microdose psilocybin and do intermittent fasting. And then that's the only thing I would ever talk about. It's Silo. Oh, God damn it. I'm not saying it again. Forget it. Okay? Forget it. Psilocybin. Okay. Fine. Fine. Ugh. We'll do it live. I was actually just looking at different monologues that I can do. We'll worry about that later. Okay? Worry about that next time. I think you're great no matter how you say it. Thank you, Risk Inverse. Do Willem Dafoe's monologue from The Lighthouse. I haven't seen that, so I don't think I could accurately do that justice. I should watch it. I should watch The Lighthouse. I should watch that. Perhaps I will. Perhaps I will. We're going to have to get into our serious discourse soon. We're almost there. I've almost done enough chit-chat. Almost. Hey, Brian, what's up? How's the new PC? You setting that up? Very nice. I got to go back to some nighttime streaming as well. I've gotten out of the habit of doing my Cyber Rob streams, and yeah, the NBA playoffs have been on. I've been focusing on that. I've just been kind of tired at night lately, so I just haven't really felt like it, but I will get back to a Cyber Rob stream soon enough. Did you see the Bud Light related assault story in York? No, I did not. What's going on with that? Imagine being the kind of person that's still, like, 3 weeks later worked up about Bud Light. You truly have to have had your brain fucking melted by conservative media. Hello, Danger Dave Ball. How's it going? Fuck, of course it's in Vaughan. Of course this story's in Vaughan. Vaughan should not exist, honestly. I'm sorry to anyone that lives there, but Vaughan should just be razed to the ground. It serves no purpose. Just get it out of there. No more Vaughan. Suspected Bud Light purchase. Not now, Global News. Suspected Bud Light purchase likely led to altercation outside Ontario liquor store. We saw someone suspected a possible Bud Light purchase. We got to assault that person to make sure that they understand that it's not acceptable. Possible hate-motivated assaults outside of a Vaughan liquor store last weekend were likely initiated over a suspected Bud Light purchase. And remember, of course, the reason that's going on is that Bud Light, of course, had a single promoted Instagram post with a trans influencer. Understandable if it's BLL Lime. I would assault anybody that criticized me for that, actually. If they're criticizing my Bud Light Lime purchase. Give them the old Glasgow kiss. I'm just joking. I would not give you a Glasgow kiss, Lodane. I would not do that. York Regional Police issued a news release about the incident, which happened at around 8:30 p.m. Saturday. A man and a woman were allegedly accosted by several males outside of a store located in the Jane Street and Major Mackenzie Drive West area. One of these suspects commented on the male victim's choice of alcohol and uttered anti-homosexual derogatory slurs as he approached the victim. Police said in a news release. A police spokesperson told Global News that the suspect commented on what they thought was a Bud Light purchase, but it wasn't. He actually didn't have Bud Light, the spokesman said, later noting the recent controversy surrounding the beer brand. This is great. This is just fantastic. I guess there were some rainbow colors on the cans, and so it was initiated that way. Then upon further determination as to what they purchased, they still weren't happy with that. Let's just put it that way, and the insults continued. It turns out there's other beers that also have put out like shallow marketing campaigns to gesture towards including the LGBTQ community. And that's just can't be allowed to happen anymore. A brand deal between Bud Light and transgender social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney triggered loud anti-trans backlash online earlier this year. The deal, which saw Mulvaney's face printed on a single signature blue can, sounded numerous calls for LGBTQ2 opposition to destroy their beer stockpiles and potentially boycott the brand entirely. After one of the suspects approached the male victim, a female victim then stepped between them and was assaulted before two male suspects got involved and both victims were assaulted, with the male being knocked to the ground. Jesus Christ. Good. Oh, and these are the people, too, who totally look like Nazis. Good stuff. Great stuff. Robin had a violent street fight over cheap beer. That's actually a very funny image. Imagine standing outside of a liquor store like a guy trying to get signatures for a petition and asking if they're Bud Light enjoyers. That's right. It's like it used to be remember doing this in the when you're a teenager? I know I did. In the 90s, standing outside the beer store in the liquor store, like, can you get us a little something? Instead of doing that, they're like, what do you got there? Is that a Bud Light? Stab them. Immediate stab. Rib will stab a man for a CL Smooth. That's right. Very refreshing. Very refreshing. And you know, the CL Smooth does a lime version and a grapefruit version, and I enjoy both of them. Very refreshing summer beverage. It's called Hey Mister, the alcohol getting game. Would you do that? Like, chat, like Brian or whoever in the chat, like if you were going into the liquor store and there was teenagers asking you to buy them like a beer or like one of those Bacardi lemon things or something. God, I drank a lot of that in high school. I could never even smell that now. I could never even smell it. I would just instantly vomit. I don't think I would do it, though. I think I would be too scared. I think I'd be too anxious. I'd be like, no. I don't think I would do it. Even though when I was in that position, it seemed like a really easy proposition. I don't think I would do it. I don't know what those kids are going to do. Kids are very stupid. I don't know what they're going to do with that alcohol. They could get into mischief. You know, then I'm going to be responsible for that. These American kids are sent to war at 18. Yeah, and that's fucked up. But I still don't think I would do it. This is how we know we're getting older. We're afraid of the teens. I know. I know. They turn out to be snitches, and then you get arrested. We don't know. It could be some kind of elaborate sting operation. The first time I got drunk was on a lemonade cooler called Boomerang. It was disgusting, and I still can't taste it. I remember there was a time when, like, you discovered chasing, you know? So you could just drink, like, vodka and then just immediately chase it with, like, a Coke or whatever. And it's like, it's easy. I can just drink an entire, like, small bottle of this. No problem. And oh boy, was it a problem. Oh boy. It was absolutely a problem. I've talked about it before, but like when I think about the culture of binge drinking that I grew up around when I was a teenager, I really like shake my head at it. How completely normalized that was. Like I would be fucking mortified if like my kid today, you know, my stepson, he's 17, my kid's 7, like when he's a teenager, if he was out there drinking to the same extent that I was when I was 16, 17, I would be horrified. Like, Jesus Christ. It's insane how totally normalized that was in Brockville, Ontario, where I grew up. And I know that's common like all over the place. Same, I didn't even like drinking that much. It was just what you did. Well, I definitely liked it, but it's like I really skipped like the idea of just having like 4 beers never occurred to me. You know? Lodane was having opinions about martinis at 20. The idea of just hanging out and having 4 beers and having a nice time just never occurred to me. Now I enjoy that a lot. 4 is even too much for me now. Now I'll have 2, maybe 3. And I'm like, I feel great, you know? That idea when I was like 16, 17 just never occurred to me though. Yeah, it's like let's split a 40-ouncer of like gin with like a friend in one evening. Really not good. And Matt, I did that shit as well, also. And booze gets tougher on the old bod. That is true as well. But I just find it's nicer as well. You know? The other day I went to the park. I had 2 sour beers and I was like, I feel fucking great. I would not have more than this, you know? I had some really crazy times when I was like 16, 17, 18. I am absolutely a lightweight as well, but I like it that way, you know? I actually enjoy myself. I feel sick just if I were to split a 40 now, I think I would die. I would just drop dead. I would just immediately die. Yeah, I could have died at least 3 times. Please don't die. Well, I'll work on it. Has anyone seen that like that British lady that makes these like ungodly concoctions on like TikTok and has this super like regional British accent and mixes up these fucking crazy things and then just slams it? Like one evening out with that person, I would for sure not survive. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Is this why you don't hang out with fat pussy anymore? Malt liquor Rob is what he used to call you. I'm not talking about a 40 of malt liquor. I'm talking about a 40 of like gin. But that's right, yeah. Unfortunately, me and my childhood best friend, Fat Pussy, who everyone knows this, had a falling out. He's still carrying on the partying ways, and I had to move on from it. Fat Pussy is still in the trenches. This is lore from the show from before you became a community member, Brian. Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to go out and have maybe a few more drinks, but this is a rare occurrence for me. This is a very rare occurrence. This is like between maybe 5 times a year max. Well, I guess I got to get into like the actual like discourse we're doing here. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about today. Now that we're caught up, now that we've done an hour of chit chat. I love drinking and partying, and we used to crush this salmiak licorice hard candy called Turkish pepper and put it in a vodka bottle, which we then took turns turning over until the crushed candy dissolved. We got very drunk and danced. That sounds kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about Victory Day, and the way former Soviet republics are responding or not responding to that. I wanted to talk a little bit about this like CSIS China political influence thing as well in Canada that's been going on, which is escalating even more now. Skittles and Natty Ice. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. I would try it. I would absolutely try it. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if I successfully saved this thing that I wanted to talk about. Is a good place to start it. Let's hear from the big man himself. Let's hear from the big man himself on Victory Day.
И соотечественницы. Наступил великий день победы над Германией. Фашистская Германия, поставленная на колени Красной Армией и войсками наших союзников, признала себя побежденной и объявила безоговорочную капитуляцию. 7 мая был подписан в городе Реймсе предварительный протокол капитуляции. 8 мая представитель немецкого главнокомандования в присутствии представителей Верховного командования союзных войск и Верховного главнокомандования советских войск подписали в Берлине окончательный акт капитуляции, исполнение которого началось с 24 часов 8 мая. Зная волчью повадку немецких заправил, считающих договора и соглашения пустой бумажкой, мы не имеем основания верить им на слово Однако, сегодня с утра немецкие войска во исполнение акта капитуляции стали в массовом порядке складывать оружие и сдаваться в плен нашим войскам.
You lost.
Это уже не пустая бумажка. Это действительная капитуляция вооруженных сил Германии. Правда, одна группа немецких войск в районе Чехословакии.
And I'm sorry. Again, I know talking about this isn't exactly popular. I know no one wants to be called a Stalinist or whatever. Ooh, a Stalinist. Oh, no. We wouldn't want that. To me, though, Stalin being in this position, giving this speech, being the leader of the Soviet Union through these years, regardless, speak for yourself. I know, Sinchal. Regardless of anything that happened before or after, or any mistakes that happened, or, there's certainly plenty of real violence and things that were going on, which people find distasteful. Regardless of any of that, though, I think just Stalin being in this position to give this speech and being the leader of the Soviet Union through this period where they did ultimately triumph over fascism and played such an outsized role in ending World War II and defeating the Germans and literally protecting the whole world, like not just Russia, but protecting the whole world from this fascist scourge. I think just that, you throw away everything else out about Stalin's legacy. I think just that should be enough for us to just acknowledge. I don't think it should be controversial, really. Should be enough for us to acknowledge that Stalin was an incredibly important historical figure who contributed a lot of positive things. I mean, is that crazy? Is it really that crazy? The person who we talk about World War II so much, and like Churchill, and we uphold these kind of figures, these Western figures, and the role that Canadians and Americans and these allied countries played in defeating fascism. It's such a big part of our sort of popular mythology. I think just that in and of itself, that should be enough for us to just recognize that Stalin was a really important world leader that did contribute a lot of positive things. And being the central world leader that was absolutely integral to defeating fascism, I think is a big part of that. Right? Why can't we just acknowledge that? Does that make you Stalinist? I don't think so. I don't think it should. Does the USSR manage to get through that period without Stalin? I don't really think so. People talk about building these munitions factories and how people were just worked to death and froze to death building these factories. If that hadn't have happened, does the USSR successfully repel the Nazi invasion, the Nazi threat? I don't think they do. If he hadn't carried out some of these purges, and I'm sure, I don't think it's controversial either to say that I'm sure there were people that got caught up in those purges that didn't deserve to have anything bad happen to them. But if he hadn't carried out these purges, does the Soviet Union have the strength to hold together through this period? I don't know. I don't really think so. I don't think it should be controversial to acknowledge that. That's a really important contribution to world history. At the very least, I think people should be able to acknowledge that it's an extremely important historical figure that made a really vital contribution in defeating this fascist threat. Is that so bad? Is it so bad to admit that? I don't really think so. But it's very difficult for some people as well. We memorialize way worse people than Stalin. Well, like Churchill. We fucking build statues to Churchill. There's Churchill statues in Canada, in addition to the SS monuments that we also have, which should also indicate a few things. There were vastly more innocent people harmed by Western purges than any Soviet purge. They just call it imperialism and mass incarceration. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I just want to acknowledge, I'm not like a Stalin did nothing wrong person. I think there's mistakes that happened. I'm certain people that didn't deserve it did get purged. But my point is though, that regardless of that, I think being the world leader that played such a role in defeating this fascist threat should be enough for anyone to just be able to basically acknowledge that, he's an important and historical world figure that we should like be able to, if not uphold, some people might disagree on that, if not uphold, but at least acknowledge that they played that they contributed a lot of important things. Oh no, Rob's a Stalinist. Ooh. I think playing such that outsized role in winning World War II is probably a pretty important contribution, I would say. Just mean that any Westerner has no leg to stand on here? No, of course not. I mean, especially when you look at Western imperialism after World War II and the massive body count that was racked up in that period, which Michael Parenti called a free market Holocaust. But we can't ever say anything positive about Stalin. We can go over that part in Black Shirts and Reds, pointing out the millions of people killed in those years following World War II, those decades following World War II. Yeah, in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam and Korea, throughout Africa, throughout Latin America. Horrible. Millions and millions of people killed in this process. But we can't say one positive thing about Stalin without getting canceled. The woke mobs, that's the thing, it's like these right-wing guys, they complain about the woke mobs and cancel culture, but if you say one positive thing about Stalin, these very people will be like, oh, you're canceled. The woke mobs will cancel you if you say one positive thing about Stalin. Yeah, thank you for this thread. Ben, we can take a look at this after. Let's watch the rest of this speech. I'm just saying, though, that like what we're looking at right now, Victory Day, Stalin's role in the Soviet Union and World War II, that should be enough, I think, for us to just uncontroversially acknowledge Stalin as being a really important world figure who we should, if you maybe admire is too strong a word for some, we should at least, show some respect to.
Уклоняется от капитуляции. Но я надеюсь, что Красной Армии удастся привести ее в чувство. Теперь мы можем с полным основанием заявить, что наступил исторический день окончательного разгрома Германии. День великой победы.
Sorry to keep interrupting the big man. How much of a fucking relief must this have been? For not for people around the world, but for people in Russia that had suffered so much. The people of Russia suffered so much during this period. And 29 million people killed? And the absolute horror show that was like the siege of Leningrad and all this stuff. How much of a fucking relief must it have been to finally hear this speech? It's really, I don't think we can even fathom it. Those of us that have grown up in the West, especially in the years following this, that have never really understood conflict and war and starvation and these things, we've never really had that. It's kind of unfathomable to think about how much of a relief that must have been, The West has carried out extreme propaganda against Stalin. I mean, this is what I've talked about. I think there's been this decades-long project to equate the Hitler and the crimes of fascism with Stalin, which is a form of genocide denial. But now, as we've seen over the last year especially, that's been completely normalized now in the West. The idea that the Soviet Union and the Nazis are just two sides of the same coin. That's just like a completely normal opinion for people to have, which I think in the past was totally unthinkable. In the past was correctly recognized as being Holocaust revisionism, But this is just widespread, this idea that Stalin and Hitler are basically just two sides of the same coin, which is just completely preposterous. Anyway, sorry to keep interrupting Stalin here.
Нашего народа над германским империализмом. Великие жертвы, принесенные нами во имя свободы и независимости нашей Родины, неисчислимые лишения и страдания, пережитые нашим народом в ходе войны, напряженный труд в тылу и на фронте, отданный на алтарь Отечества, не прошли даром и увенчались полной победой над врагом. Вековая борьба славянских народов за свое существование и свою независимость окончилась победой над немецкими захватчиками и немецкой тиранией. Отныне над Европой будет развиваться великое знамя свободы народов и мира между народами. 3 года назад Гитлер всенародно заявил, что в его задачу входит расчленение Советского Союза и отрыв от него Кавказа, Украины, Белоруссии, Прибалтики и других областей. Он прямо заявил: мы уничтожим Россию, чтобы она больше никогда не смогла подняться. Это было 3 года назад. Но сумасбродным идеям Гитлера не суждено было сбыться. От войны развеял их в прах. На деле получилось нечто прямо противоположное тому, о чем бредили гитлеровцы. Германия разбита на голову. Германские войска капитулируют. Советский Союз торжествует победу, хотя он и не собирается ни расчленять, ни уничтожать Германию. Товарищи, Великая Отечественная война завершилась нашей полной победой. Период войны в Европе кончился. Начался период мирного развития. С победой вас, мои дорогие соотечественники и соотечественницы! Слава нашей героической Красной Армии, отстоявшей независимость нашей Родины и завоевавшей победу над врагом. Слава нашему великому народу, народу-победителю! Вечная слава героям, павшим в боях с врагом и отдавшим свою жизнь за свободу и счастье нашего народа.
I'm sorry, but that's just great shit. I'm sorry to say. And this is amazing too. And then you have people like pointing out like Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Like you can't acknowledge. To me, fixating on Molotov-Ribbentrop is so fucking bizarre. Like to exclusively focus on that and literally just hand wave away the 29 million Russians and not even Russians, but Soviet citizens who, including in Ukraine. Actually, there was more than that, right? It was 29 million Russians, and it was even more, and if you count the greater Soviet Union. But to hand wave that away, to hand wave the incredibly outsized role that the Soviet Union played in defeating Germany, which never would have happened without them. Never would have happened without them. Defeating this Nazi threat, this Nazi menace, would not have happened without the Russians. And to just ignore that part of the history, ignore the part where Russians fought and struggled and died defeating Germany, defeating the fascists, and to point to Molotov-Ribbentrop as the idea that, oh no, they were friends and they're the exact same. That's just fucking insane to me. But there's still people that will that's the only thing that they remember from that period. And I think it's why it's important to point this shit out too. You can look at the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and the kind of strategy behind that as they were trying to avoid a war that ultimately killed 29 million of their citizens. And they were trying to take steps to avoid that and prevent that from happening. After repeatedly trying to form an anti-fascist pact with the West, which was rejected. Yeah, that's right. Leaping Larry. That's what I mean. So you ignore that. You ignore the role that they played in trying to form this anti-fascist pact. You ignore the role that they played in defeating fascism, and then you completely ignore the way that people in the West talked about Hitler and the Nazis prior to the war breaking out. The idea that it was only the Russians that were trying to form some kind of détente with them so they could avoid this disastrous conflict. And then you look at what was going on in the West. You look at like William Lyon Mackenzie King, the Canadian played. Prime Minister King, a vicious anti-Semite, was the most pro-appeasement leader in the British Empire and was fond of Hitler. You can look at William Lyon Mackenzie King's journals from when he met with Hitler. Loved the guy. And most, Western leaders were viciously anti-Semitic. Like if our nations weren't anti-Semitic, why were we turning away boatloads of Jewish refugees that were trying to flee the Nazis? We wanted nothing to do with bringing in these Jewish refugees. And we were more than happy to have Hitler do whatever he wanted as long as he was moving east and going after the Russians. And Western leaders were very, very clear about this. But of course, this doesn't get included in this history, where it's like there's the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and that's the only thing. Everything that happened before that is forgotten. Everything that happened after that, forgotten. It's Molotov-Ribbentrop. That's the only part of this, like the lead up to the war, that anyone wants to remember. And yeah, the fact that 29 million Russians died defeating the Nazis just don't count. It just doesn't count. Or Stalin's role in leading the nation during that time doesn't count. Yeah, they were the last Allied country in Europe to make a pact with Hitler. Like, it's truly amazing the way that the completely revisionist history that's happened. Like it is literally 1984. I know conservatives like to say things are 1984 when like Bud Light has a trans influencer advertise their product. But like the way that this history has been completely revised and forgotten and memory holed is, the actual Orwellian thing that's been going on. Even though 1984 itself is a part of anti-communist propaganda, a lot of the concepts and terms that Orwell used in that book, I think, are still really important to help us understand these things. The Canadian state's interest in World War II is to use the war to whip up nationalism and stamp out socialist organizing at home and to defend British imperialism abroad. The Canadian state was happy to take on a founder of the Nazi Party, Otto Strasser, as a political advisor. And this whole point about stamping out socialist organizing at home, we see that as well with the Ukrainian diaspora. As I've talked about a number of times, the Ukrainian diaspora in Canada at that time were socialist, The largest socialist newspaper at that time was written in Ukrainian. And after the war, that's why we have these Nazi monuments, is that after the war, we brought in all these former SS members and fascists, not only to disrupt that kind of socialistic Ukrainian diaspora, but to act as like hired muscle for the anti-labor movement. Seeing history being rewritten retrospectively has radicalized me. Every day remind myself of how it was done in the past to understand the present and the future. And it's one of the reasons that I'm thankful as well that like China is still together, that China is still being led by the Communist Party, because they won't forget this history. They're making sure to teach this history, and there's 1.4 billion people there that are going to remember this. You might be able to, like, Westerners are so fucking brainwashed that you might be able to convince people like of this false version of history here, but it's not going to happen overall. People around the world, not even just in China, but people around the world, as we've seen with the reaction to Russia and Ukraine, people around the world recognize Russia's contribution to defeating fascism. They haven't forgotten. They haven't forgotten Russia's role in trying to defend them and protect them from the evils of colonialism and free them from these shackles. People around the world haven't forgotten this. Even maybe if we did. Strasser's plan was to stage a coup so that the Allies could cut a deal with the good Nazis, but Strasser was a fraud, and only reluctantly, when no good Nazis could be found to cut a deal with, did the Allies invade. The cream of the Nazi army was defeated by the Soviets. Immediately after the war, the Canadian state lost whatever aversion they may have had previously to Nazis and fascist collaborators. With the help of the Vatican, Prime Minister Louis Saint Laurent personally intervened to bring the Slovak fascist and war criminal Karol Sidor to Canada. Oh, and here we go here. Most critically, the Canadian state admitted tens of thousands of Ukrainian Nazis, former members of OUN, UPA, who were hired by, this is what I was just saying, were hired by companies to put down strikes and violently attack union organizers. Anti-Nazi Ukrainian Canadians were a principal target and suffered many assaults. Do you hear that? I got a car alarm. Got a car alarm going outside of me here. Just gonna wait till that stops. Very irritating. Okay. Excuse me. Nazi collaborators were not just tolerated, but sought after. Latvian fascist Alfred Valdmanis was brought in to run the economy of Newfoundland, but was soon found to be totally corrupt. He was jailed for stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. One could go on and on. Suffice to say that the Canadian ruling class today has zero qualms about funding and arming outright Nazis in Ukraine. They try to cover it up with empty phrase mongering about democracy, but it's a fraud. So I wanted to take a look at this. I think this is important to focus on. We've talked about how in Ukraine over the last year and a half, like especially like since 2014, but really over the last year and a half, how this again, this glorious legacy in Ukraine of heroes, joining the Red Army to defeat fascism, this long legacy of socialism and solidarity and internationalism in Ukraine, which has been completely spat upon and completely buried over the last year. The really vital, important contributions that Ukrainians made to fighting fascism and defeating fascism, completely ignored, completely erased. And the idea of showing the Russian flag, the Soviet flag, or having these Soviet monuments is just completely has been turned into this kind of what it almost amounts to a hate crime in Ukraine now. And here's this as well. Look at this. Fans who look at the date. Listen, this is not a coincidence. Okay, I would like to look at this report here and really unpack this. And I think when you pay attention to this, and we talk about the way that this revisionist history has been kind of foisted on us, and this legacy has been forgotten, I think it becomes a lot more clear what the Cold War was about, and what anti-communism is about, and what NATO is about, and what destroying the USSR was about, and what the purpose was. So this is a story from Estonia. It says, fans who support the Russian ideology in the war against Ukraine will be fined in Estonia from May 5th to 9th. 1,200 euros for the flags of Russia and the USSR, as well as symbols with the signs Z and V, will also be issued a fine. So Estonia, which again, during this period, May 8th and 9th, Victory Day, was freed, was liberated by the Soviet Union. And now we have on that, instead of on that anniversary, instead of remembering the Soviet Union, remember this great victory, this heroic victory over fascism, and the role that the Soviet Union played in freeing places like Estonia from this Nazi threat, this Nazi menace. They should be celebrating this. They should be celebrating this every year. They should be thanking the Red Army. They should be proudly displaying the Soviet flag in these moments. to celebrate this amazing victory. And now Estonia is saying on the anniversary, we will fine people who even think about showing the Soviet flag. Like, doesn't that really kind of make it clear what NATO is about and what anti-communism is about and what the Cold War was about? Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm kind of trying to get at here? And it's even what the Ukraine war is about as well. The Russian-Ukraine war.
Что мы запрещаем все публичные собрания, которые могут быть связаны с поддержкой агрессии.
No subtitles on that. And as our friend Tyler Shipley says, May 8th is VE Day. The day Nazi Germany was defeated, that military victory cost 26 million Soviet lives from many countries, including Estonia. Banning the flag that defeated the Nazis on the day they defeated the Nazis says a lot about your feelings about the Nazis. So you know what I mean? When we talk about this, it's not just about Ukraine, this Nazi problem in Ukraine, but all these former Soviet states that have been, over the years, restoring the very same monsters to power that, you know, engaged in such barbarism during this period, and completely ignoring, forgetting, revising the role that the Soviet Union played in liberating these nations. You know, it's pretty fucking grim. You know, I would like to read. Let me see if I can find it. I don't have one of these saved, but I would like to read one of these. This always gets really interesting in these moments. Oh wow, this is a really cool poster. This is actually where I got a lot of my Soviet propaganda posters that I have up on my walls here. Look at this. This is so sick. I might have to get this actually. Glory to the soldier liberator. That is really cool. I wanted to find, there's a passage from a Soviet recollection of going into one of these concentration camps, and it's so touching. Yeah, Latvia is doing Latvian language testing for the 20% of the country that speaks Russian. Seriously, like, we got in these former places that were under that kind of fascist occupation. Now you've got them putting like Russian speaking old people that have lived there for decades through like loyalty tests and threatening to deport them if they still just speak Russian. I really just want to find this like passage. I see it often, but now, like, of course, when it comes time to look at it, then it becomes a lot more difficult. Does anyone know what I'm talking about here? There's this passage that I often see featuring the recollections of one of these Soviet soldiers. Relic, did you find it? Thank you. So Georgy Elizavetsky, who became the Soviet commandant of Auschwitz, thought that one could lose one's mind just by entering the camp and encountering the victims. Like Petrenko, he was one of the first Soviet officers to enter Auschwitz. It says, my blood runs cold when I mention Auschwitz even now. The cynical Nazi greeting above the gates of the concentration camp, Arbeit macht frei, which I read on January 27, 1945, for the first time stands out in my memory. When I entered the barrack, I saw living skeletons lying on the 3-tiered bunks. As in fog, I hear my soldiers saying, "You are free, comrades." I sense that they do not understand and begin speaking to them in Russian, Polish, German, Ukrainian dialects. Unbuttoning my leather jacket, I show them my medals. Then I use Yiddish. Their reaction is unpredictable. They think I'm provoking them. They begin to hide. And only when I said to them, "Do not be afraid, I'm a colonel of the Soviet army and a Jew. We've come to liberate you." Finally, as if the barrier collapsed, they rushed towards us all, shouting, fell on their knees, kissed the flaps of our overcoats, and threw their arms around our legs. And we could not move, stood motionless, while unexpected tears rolled down our cheeks. Meanwhile, in the West, it's Fentanyl Awareness Day. Oh, good. So, like, I think that's kind of the point, though, that I wanted to make, is that I don't think it should be controversial to uphold this legacy. And I think it's so telling the way that not only have we forgotten this, not only has this legacy been totally erased, but we've spent especially the last year suggesting that, like, they're removing all evidence of, like, Soviet influence in places like Ukraine, but in all these former Soviet republics. You know? And yeah, you look at NATO and the way that NATO was formed and run by ex-Nazis. And the way that, like, that legacy has been, since the collapse of the USSR, that legacy has just been completely upended and completely turned on its head, which is, I think, a horrible fucking crime. And again, it's not just about Russian chauvinism, but it's pointing out the role that millions of heroes in a lot of these nations and republics were part of this legacy, proud parts of this legacy. You know, Ukraine especially. And I think it's a fucking shame that that legacy, like the sacrifice that these heroes made in defeating this fascist threat, has just been completely, like, pissed on over the last year. And now you have these former Soviet republics on Victory Day where you're going to get fined for showing the Soviet flag, the flag of the Union of Republics that liberated them from this fascist threat. I think that's pretty fucking horrible, if you ask me. Anyway, I don't know if I have much else to say about this. I mean, maybe there's like some parade, some. Let me see what we got here on YouTube. I don't really want to watch the current one. I was wondering if we can look at the ones from the past. Just scrolling through YouTube. I mean, it's like there's like it's going to be too depressing to watch it with the insipid Western commentary. And folks, let me briefly remind you, okay? I've talked about the important thing that I think it's important to keep remembering this legacy, the way that this
На
legacy has
трибуну
been erased,
Мавзолея
in the
поднимаются
West especially.
руководители коммунистической партии и советского государства во главе с генеральным секретарем ЦК КПСС Михаилом
And I'll just remind you, folks,
Горбачевым.
if you appreciate this kind of commentary on Twitch, if you like that there's someone that's trying to not forget about this history and trying to maintain this legacy, well, please, if you can, support the work that I do here on Twitch. Support TRRS. We're not going to hear a lot of positive things said about the Soviet Union in our mainstream history, in our mainstream media, in the history that we're taught. I'm trying to do what I can over here to have a bit of an alternative perspective from our, imperialist junior partner, racist hellhole country.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
TRRS Sankara.
So if you enjoy the commentary and you enjoy this community, please, if you can, subscribe to TRRS. It is $5 per month. It's completely free of charge if you have an Amazon Prime account. Every little bit helps, such as the resub from Ben Bang Boom 10 there. Thank you, Ben Bang Boom, for the 18 months, tier 1. I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Helps me continue doing this program. Helps keep it on the air. Lately, I've been leaving my pitches till the end of the stream to not much success. So, if you can, folks, please support TRRS. Get all the emotes, join the community, help keep this content on the air, and become friends with me. We all need friends, right? We all need community. We don't want to be isolated. We don't want to be atomized.
Маршал Советского Союза Соколов. Командует парадом генерал армии Лушев.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Gen X Bushy, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Gen X Bushy, you've been really bailing me out lately, and I appreciate it so much. And yeah, folks, don't leave it all to Gen X Bushy. We can't just put it on Diego and Gen X Bushy and some of our few other generous community members to keep this show on the air. You know? I'm sure Gen X Bushy would appreciate having a little bit of relief from having to bail me out.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
From having to bail me out each and every day on here with gifted subs. Thank you, Gen X Bushy, though. I appreciate it. And thank you, Ben Bang Boom, for the 5 gifted subs. Look at that. I really appreciate that. Ben Bang Boom 10. Thank you for that. And remember, every little bit helps, folks. Every little bit helps. If you can gift a single sub, if you can give friend coin, there's also the tip option. There's many ways that you can support this content. Our top gifter is holding up half the sky. It's true.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
JJ got bored. Thank you for the 6 months tier 1. Thank you, JJ. Very much appreciated. Thank you for that.
Здравствуйте, товарищи! Поздравляю вас с 40-й годовщиной победы советского народа в Великой Отечественной войне.
Any other takers, folks? Does anyone else want to rocket right up to the elite tier of the Friendship Triangle community, which is not a cult or a pyramid scheme or a psyop? And if it was, I would be open and honest with you about that. I would tell you.
Здравствуйте, товарищи! Поздравляю вас с 40-й годовщиной победы советского народа в Великой Отечественной войне.
Yeah, I don't want to watch the modern Victory Day. And I remember, as we've talked about with Russia and Ukraine, obviously, as many people remind me, I'm a lot more sympathetic to Russia's position than many people are in our, in the West, in our media landscape or even social media landscape. At the same time, though, I don't want to see Putin. Like, Putin's an anti-communist himself. Putin, before this invasion, shit on Lenin. He's a former socialist himself who benefited from and prospered from the collapse of the Soviet Union. I don't want to see his fucking face like in the Victory Day. I think it's kind of fucked up actually to sort of acknowledge Russia's role in that, acknowledge the role the Soviet Union played in defeating fascism, while contributing to the collapse of socialism in the Soviet Union himself. But unlike Brandon, Putler raising wages and expanding the Russian welfare state. It is one of my pipe dreams that eventually Russia can be brought back onto the socialist path. I don't know if that's going to happen under Putler. I kind of don't think so. I would like to see a socialist revolution in Russia, certainly. I don't know how much appetite there is for that. It is one of my, Hail Mary pipe dreams, though, that one day Russia will go back onto that socialist path. Perhaps its alliance with China might contribute to that as well. I think it'll happen because the Chinese model works and is more sustainable. Yeah, I think that's, maybe that's copium. I don't know. I don't think it's impossible, though. Our Larouchite friends love to talk about how Putin is a secret communist. Why be a secret communist? He's already in this anti-NATO, anti-Western alliance. If he was a secret communist, you'd think maybe he would just be a communist now. There's no reason not to be. You're already making this big alliance with the world's largest socialist nation. If you might as well rip the Band-Aid off if that's the plan, Somehow I don't believe that. Call it copium, but China is an actual cause for hope in the world, and that's important. I couldn't agree more. That's why I talk about it often. It doesn't take a commie to see China's model functions while neoliberalism is constantly raising tensions and burning down the workforce. And China's not even where they want to be yet. I mean, they're only they're still decades away from completing this kind of socialist transformation. They're barely even begun, Which I think another thing that I find really exciting to think about.
Здравствуйте, товарищи! Поздравляю вас с 40-й годовщиной победы советского народа в Великой Отечественной войне.
JFK and Jimmy Carter had their hearts in the right place. Well, I think both carried out evil actions, right? Of their own. Like Jimmy Carter started the arming of the Mujahideen, right? He started that whole process. Both of them, though, show that I don't think even anyone that has good intentions can't go against the national security establishment in the United States. You know, you could make an argument that Jimmy Carter there was kind of it's in the same way that Nixon kind of got brought down by certain these like possible like intelligence community tinkering, and there was the whole thing with Jimmy Carter and the Iran hostage situation and stuff, and that was prolonged to help Reagan win. You know, both of them show that you can't really go against those people. You can't be an American president that has like a non-imperialist foreign policy. If you are, you're going to get in line or something bad's going to happen to you. You catch Michael Tracy yesterday. I don't know. I've been seeing some bullshit Michael's been saying lately. Michael is just like a frustrating person for me because sometimes takes stances, like a lot of these people take stances with like foreign policy that I actually agree with. And I think it's important to have the perspective. But then with this whole like mass shooting, Michael's been doing this for years now, downplaying these right-wing mass shootings. And Michael Tracy, who like I don't really like all that much, but I know has an understanding of like American empire. And I know Michael Tracy knows about this legacy of like Latin American fascism and these like right-wing death squads in Latin America. Like I know Michael knows about this shit. And then when you have this like Latin American mass shooter with these Nazi tattoos, Michael sticks his head in the sands and like and pretends to not remember this history or like not acknowledge the fact that like non-white people or like Latin American people especially can play central roles in violent fascism. You know, it's like fucking come on. I know Michael knows this history better than that. At that point, you're just being intentionally ignorant so you can score points against people online, which I have zero respect for. Like Michael Tracy, I'm sure knows about this legacy in Latin America. And was he doing the Kennedy thing as well? Sad. I will. You know what? I can kind of say that maybe I don't know if this is a controversial take. Like someone can stop me if they think this is a controversial take, but I think this fixation on white supremacy has been like it is important to focus on it because white supremacy is obviously a very real phenomenon. Sometimes I think it's more useful just to talk about fascism though, or colonialism, you know. And if you talk about these like colonialist structures, like they're inherently white supremacist because they inherently benefit the predominantly white European nations, but all these other like people around the world, there's like compradors and collaborators throughout the global south in Latin America and Africa and the Middle East and all these places that have contributed to it. But it becomes this like rhetorical thing that I think then people are able to project ignorance like this. When you talk about, oh, they support white supremacy, it's like, what, they're black, but they're from Africa, they're from the Middle East, they're from Latin America, you know? Where it's like, if you just talk about, like, you can understand that fascism, colonialism is inherently white supremacist because it inherently benefits these like predominantly white colonizer nations. But it gives the people this very rigid understanding. They think white supremacy and they just think like the Klan. They think of this like, yeah, that pure race German Aryan thing, like, which is obviously important, but it obscures or I think obfuscates the role that non-white people play in upholding that system, and in a way that becomes confusing for liberals and certain other people as well. Does that make sense? I think it's like, that's what I mean. It's like this fixation on talking about specifically white supremacy, when I think if you just explain what colonialism is to people, you understand more that, yeah, it benefits predominantly white people, but it's not like only strictly Aryan white people are part of this movement. Far from it. They can't accept that the system is racist because they want to reform it, not get rid of it. I guess that's part of it as well, right? People don't want to acknowledge that these systems that they uphold ultimately are inherently racist, inherently white supremacist.
От имени и по поручению Центрального комитета Коммунистической партии Советского Союза, Президиума Верховного
The Nazi
Совета
ideology didn't die; it was forced to hide it a little. Well, that's the whole thing. The whole sinister thing about liberalism and this whole like rainbow imperialism. You know, that's been a big part of the post-war strategy. And you still see that the way imperialism is like pinkwashed today, using LGBTQIA rights as like this cynically weaponize them. Weaponize, LGBTQIA issues in an effort to uphold this like rigid colonial hierarchy, which ultimately benefits straight white men predominantly. Or the way that like diversity or inclusion is included in this, and then you have a black president. So of course we're moving past these things. You got trans people of color with social anxiety piloting the drones that are like taking out weddings in Yemen, and blowing up little kids. So it's like that becomes sinister as well. And then you have people that are against imperialism that then form these like reactionary ideas about women's rights, about diversity, about LGBTQIA rights, because of the ways that they've been incorporated into this imperialist project, And then you have these people that can't hold two thoughts in their mind at the same time. Yeah, we need to be against imperialism, but also support women's rights and support LGBTQIA rights and support diversity in these things, like in our society that we want to build. People have like, no, one or the other. If you support this woke stuff, it means you support woke imperialism. But as we know, as we talk about on this show a lot, we are able in this community to hold two thoughts in our mind at the same time. It's very tricky for some people, obviously. It's very tricky, but we're able to do that here. Yeah, now you have like Chrystia Freeland and Hillary Clinton hanging out and talking about how they support women's rights and human rights and are against this evil Russian threat and things like that, while they're sending billions of dollars to literal Nazis. Literal Nazis. These women support that. Or Hillary Clinton, I pointed this out in a tweet the other day. Look at what's going on with women's rights in Libya right now. Libya, which Hillary Clinton helped destroy. Libya right now, to this day, as a result of that, Hillary Clinton's own actions, is a fucking disaster for women's rights. And Hillary Clinton, after participating in that, is able to sit down with like woke girl boss Chrystia Freeland and talk about how much they support women's rights and human rights in this bullshit. It's such a fucking sham. Let alone 3 or 4 thoughts in our mind at the same time. That's getting too advanced, too complicated for some people. We gotta make sure we take it slow with this.
Находились на самых трудных и решающих участках борьбы с врагом. Личным примером, страстным партийным словом они вдохновляли и вели за собой советских людей. Наш народ всегда будет помнить и по достоинству оценивать самоотверженную борьбу с фашистскими захватчиками.
Folks, you can just chill out and watch this 1985 Victory Day Parade, the last days of the Soviet Union. I'm just going to go to the bathroom, get up, stretch my legs a little bit, come back in a moment, and we'll talk a bit more. I don't think we need to watch this entire 90-minute or hour-long Victory Day Parade, but I do want to focus a little bit on this CSIS in China and story in Canada.
Соединенных Штатов
So just chill out,
Америки,
watch this parade,
Великобритании,
talk amongst yourselves. We'll be back in
Франции, Китая
5 minutes or so.
и
Okay?
других государств
Okay.
антигитлеровской коалиции. В первых рядах освободителей борьбы находились коммунисты, верные сыны своих народов, пламенные патриоты, интернационалисты. Буржуазная пропаганда прилагает немало сил, чтобы исказить историю, снять ответственность с тех, кто развязал Вторую мировую войну, принизить роль Советского Союза в разгроме фашистских захватчиков. Но правду не дано опровергнуть никому. Всему миру известно, что именно Советский Союз внес решающий вклад в победу, в освобождение народов Европы от фашистского рабства, в спасение мировой цивилизации. Победа стоила нам миллионов жизней советских людей. И этого мы никогда не забудем. Разгром ударных сил империализма привел к ослаблению его позиций, обострению и углублению общего кризиса капитализма. Возникла и успешно развивается мировая социалистическая система. Советский народ, прошедший через суровые испытания войны, полон жизненных сил для новых свершений во имя идеалов, за которые сражались защитники социалистического отечества. С великой гордостью мы видим, как растут и крепнут силы нашего государства, как воплощаются в жизнь величественные партии и планы. Коммунистическая партия, вооруженная бессмертным революционным марксистско-ленинским учением, уверенно ведет советский народ по пути, указанному Лениным. Все дела и помыслы ее направлены на благо советского народа, строительство коммунизма. Могучую творческую энергию нашему созидательному труду придает приближение важнейшего события в жизни страны, очередного 27-го съезда Коммунистической партии Советского Союза. Усилия нашей партии, советского государства, концентрируются на дальнейшем укреплении социалистического содружества, упрочении позиций социализма, на твердом и последовательном проведении в жизнь ленинских принципов мирного сосуществования государств с различным общественным строем, на прекращении развязанной империализмом гонки
Yo, yo. Hello. I'm back. I'm back. Did you miss me? What is up? Just had a little snack. Went to the bathroom, walked around a little bit, had a little snack, had a couple little naan breads with some jalapeno parmesan dip thing that I got. It was pretty good. Ate a couple pickles. And I'm good to go now. Hey, oh sorry, what's up? I hope you're having a good Tuesday as well. I did while I was doing laundry. As I was adding the fabric softener, I thought, I miss Rob. I know. It do be like that sometimes.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Great video for Victoria Day TBH.
Thank you, oh sorry. 18 months of Prime from Oh Sorry. Absolutely. It is a great one. This one's not too long. We can watch the whole thing. It's only like 20 minutes long.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And Ben Bang Boom 10. Thanks for the gifted sub as well. I really appreciate the support you've shown today. Ben Bang Boom. You're really coming through and I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I got what she meant. We got what she meant. Oh, sorry, we know. This would not be a good thing for Victoria Day, not at all. If anyone else, if any other lurkers or new community members, potential new community members want to support the channel, I'm on here on twitch.tv every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if you enjoy the show, enjoy the content, please subscribe. Help me make number go up. That's part of my life now, as part of the constant Sisyphusian content hamster wheel that I'm on here. I got to make number go up. So if you want to support me, support the work that I do on here, subscribe to the show, help me make number go up. Every little bit helps a lot. Jeff Bezos needs to build another wing in his mansion. He needed to add like 5 more bathrooms to his mansion. So I gotta bust my ass here on Twitch. Hawking slubs. That's what I do here on Twitch every day. I'm trying to inform and entertain and educate people. I'm also hawking slubs. So Daddy Jeff Bezos can get another like Moonrock back scratcher or whatever it is. I don't know. Hell yeah, throw those fucking flags on the ground. Now we sell weapons to the people that proudly carry those banners. And we suggest that the Soviet Union is... I mean, we don't even suggest that it's just as bad. Like, not only people think it's just as bad, they think it's worse. They think they literally... You're like, well, you know, we got to send money and weapons to these Nazis. I may not like them, but they're defeating the Russian threat, so what can we say?
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Make the friendship triangle become steeper. Then the trickle-down friendship will come down faster. Nika TRRS Sankara. Hey guys 100. Hey guys 100. Hey guys 100. Hey guys 100. Hey guys 100.
Thank you, useless. That's a good idea. What's that kind of a triangle when it's like even pointier? I guess the current triangle is equilateral. What about a really pointy triangle,
simply
though?
use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
These communists are scary. That's why we need to support Robert Mueller, or else Trump will win and give us all Havana Syndrome. TRRS libface TRRS Havana.
Thank you, Matt, for the 200 Fred coin. Thank you for that. Absolutely true. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I think the triangle needs to be... I think the idea of the clout trickling down faster is a solid one, but ultimately, because it's an equal community, it should be equilateral. Even though, you know, maybe some of us are maybe slightly more equal than others. Some of us may be ever so slightly more equal, but just barely, though. Just barely. The tiers are not really separated by that much. And it's not a cult. Just to make that clear. I mean, Rex, this is what I've been saying for the last year and a half. You know, it's been fucking disturbing. We've come full circle to 1938 where people are saying, well, the Nazis have their problems, but they're on our side against Russia, communist or otherwise. Yeah. Seriously. Russia bad, so we have no choice but to support these Nazis in their war against the dastardly Russians. We just have no choice. And yeah, let's forget about this entire Soviet legacy. Let's forget the role that the Soviet Union played in ending World War II, defeating fascism. Let's suggest that in places like Ukraine or Estonia or wherever, places where there's this proud Soviet legacy and tradition, that it's literally like illegal to display that flag celebrating the anniversary of when the Nazis were defeated. Only this time the US prepared its entire population to side with the Nazis. It certainly does seem to be the case, doesn't it? I think, like, you know, the last year has definitely been kind of an eye-opening experience about that. Even all these people that are like, I'm anti-fascist. Remember all the people that were like punching, if you see a Nazi, punch them in the face as hard as you can. There's like significant crossover between people that in 2017 were posting about punching Nazis, who now today support NATO, this anti-Russian military alliance founded by former Nazis, support them sending weapons to current Nazis in Eastern Ukraine. These people hold this viewpoint simultaneously. Punch every Nazi you see. Yes, NATO needs to arm these Ukrainian Nazis to defeat the Russian threat. And there's Nazis in Russia and there's Nazis in America and Canada anyways, so it's not even that big of a deal. Like, okay. All right. Every Nazi you don't punch is 3 more Nazis you need to punch. Yeah. Or as that old saying goes, when you see a table of 10 people and one of them's a Nazi, you got a table with 10 Nazis. People have conveniently forgot that as well. Too old for Twitch. How old are you? You can't be that old.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
They'll talk it out with the fascists after they cleanse the Mongol hordes. There we go. Thank you, Dimitri, for the 100 friend coin. Near 50. It's my birthday soon. I'm turning 40. Turning 40 in less than a month. One can say that all Americans and Canadians are sitting at that Nazi table. It kind of feels like that a little bit, yeah. Doesn't it? That's right, Count Figula. I just turned 40 on Sunday. Oh man, happy birthday. I didn't know that. Happy birthday. Yep, turning 40. Turning 40. I think my invitation to your birthday party in Pyongyang got lost in the mail. Genuinely thought you were my age, 26. Happy birthday in advance, Count Figula. Flattery will get you everywhere. I do like to think I maybe got a few little problems. I'm a bit overweight. I'll cop to that. I will say, though, I feel like I look all right. I feel like I look all right for being a middle-aged man. Can I say that? I don't know, man, when I see nice American libs with pride flags in their display names parroting neo-Nazi rhetoric to defend Nazi runes on Ukrainian soldiers, I think we're at the Nazi table. Yeah, and again, like I think that's why I was talking about that earlier. The way that like LGBTQIA rights have been kind of like weaponized to like, do you have pink washing of imperialism, right? It's pink washing the army of it's the pink washing the arming of these Ukrainian fascists.
You can count on me. You're gonna have
and provoking this conflict
to talk you through all this.
You know, all the shit about the pride parades in Kiev and stuff like that, which these actual Ukrainian fascists fucking hate and have talked about. Like, if we weren't there in the Euromaidan, it would have been like a gay pride parade. This is how these people talk about these rights, which are apparently so important. Or Israel as well. There's two examples. LGBTQ rights in Ukraine and Israel are used to like pink wash this like imperialist violence. And thank you, Diego, for another gifted sub to our friend Rex Cool Guy. Thank you so much, Diego. After all, Raytheon is in for queer liberation. Absolutely. We have to support Israel because Palestinians are homophobic. Meanwhile, gay marriage is not allowed in Israel. Yeah, absolutely. That gets used all the time. I mean, ironically, people use like, Castro's reactionary views on homosexuality from the past, when these views were like widespread among like many nations and cultures and economic systems, despite the fact that Cuba today has one of the most progressive pro-LGBTQ enshrined into law rights that exist anywhere. So people will take like homophobic statements made by Castro, which he later regretted and denounced, as an example of like to not support the Cuban Revolution. Meanwhile, Cuba today has this incredibly progressive pro-LGBTQ agenda. Pretty silly the way these things get twisted up and used and weaponized. I talk about how these things get cynically weaponized a lot. I think it's really important to point out. And again, pointing out that you can and should and indeed must support women's rights and support LGBTQ rights and support these progressive social values in addition to being a socialist and internationalist. You don't have to pick one or the other. Just because these socialist views have been weaponized to, I think, advance a reactionary agenda doesn't mean that you need to be against all these rights. Reminds me of the depiction of fascism in Starship Troopers. There's no cultural divide depicted between races, sexes, etc. because in that future fascism won. It doesn't need to create those divides to gain power anymore. There's actually a really interesting... there's a passage in Black Shirts and Reds that describes this play that was put on in Germany, like in the fascist period. And the way that like it's this conversation between this father character who's like a socialist or like a social democrat or whatever versus his son who's one of these like new, younger modern Germans who is thrown, and they talk about like the Volk and the way that they've thrown away all this class consciousness and these class differences and how they're all unified by being part of the same land and the same kind of race, and we're not caught up in these class divisions anymore. It's really kind of fascinating to think about. At anti-vax family members visiting and just said, education can blind you. You trust what you're taught and won't know the truth. And I straight up just left the room. And I love Fart Party 69, how you immediately left and came on and threw on this stream. Because obviously you do know the truth. And you are, in fact, because you watch this show and you're part of this community, immune to propaganda. Unlike this person that you're referring to, who has had their brain melted by just another form of propaganda while thinking that they're somehow above that. They're like, education is bad, but then they get all their information from Facebook memes. You're getting brainwashed by education, and literally is like they get all their thoughts from like the anti-wokeness Facebook account. Well, shit, I don't know what to do. I really wanted to focus more on this China CSIS story in Canada, but I don't know if I have that much time. I got another 30 minutes, which might just like not be enough time to get into all that. The player talking about is page 13. Says you won't believe it. So, okay, listen. A play written by a pro-Nazi Hans Jost entitled Schlageter and performed widely throughout Germany soon after the Nazis seized power. Hitler attended the opening night in Berlin. Pits Volk mysticism against class politics. The enthusiastic August is talking to his father Schneider. Says, you won't believe it, Papa, but The young people don't pay much attention to these old slogans anymore. The class struggle's dying out. So, and what do you have then? The Voc community. And that's a slogan? No, it's an experience. My God, our class struggle, our strikes, they weren't an experience, eh? Socialism, the International, were they fantasies maybe? They were necessary, but they were historical experiences. So in the future, therefore, we'll have your Voc community. Tell me, how do you actually envision it? Poor, rich, healthy, upper, lower. All this ceases with you, eh? He says, look, Papa, upper, lower, poor, rich, that always exists. It's only the importance one places on that question that's decisive. To us, life is not chopped up into working hours and furnished with price charts. Rather, we believe in human existence as a whole. None of us regards making money as the most important thing. We want to serve. The individual is a corpuscle in the bloodstream of his people. So what now, folks? What now? Are we just doing more chit-chatting here? It does kind of sound like MAGA. Yeah, for sure. It is kind of similar. We're against the elites, right? It doesn't matter whether we're rich or poor or working class or a boss. We're all coming together to go after those, like, elites. We're all part of the same movement. The boaters, the beautiful boaters. V in front of a vowel in German is pronounced like an F, so it's Volkswagen and Folk. Okay, I see. The boaters, the golfers. Does that mean the people who address people as folks on Twitter are engaging in crypto-fascism? Yes, unless it's me that's doing that. When all the MAGA boats sank, that was very fun. That was very fun. I agree. I must say, I do say folks sometimes. It is kind of like enjoyable. It is kind of enjoyable. You know, I think about that quote too. We were talking about Victory Day. That Hemingway quote. I was talking yesterday about how, you know, that For Whom the Bell Tolls is my favorite book. You know, Hemingway's, you know, For Whom the Bell Tolls, it's a book about fighting fascism and how important that is. Hemingway's quote about the Red Army has always stuck with me. And I think, you know, we talked about like this revisionist history, right? But this quote from Ernest Hemingway, anyone who loves freedom owes such a debt to the Red Army that it can never be repaid. Like, I think it's an example of how successful that anti-communist propaganda campaign has been in the imperial core since 1945. that, this kind of a statement, which at one point was completely uncontroversial, to acknowledge like the obvious role that the Red Army and Stalin himself played in defeating the Nazis, defeating fascism, was not controversial whatsoever to articulate that. And you see how slowly over time, and this is why I think it's important to still talk about Stalin, because this nonstop demonization of Stalin until people uncritically believe that Stalin was just as bad as Hitler. It's because they've made him separate, like completely inseparable from the idea of socialism, from the idea of the Soviet Union, as a way to delegitimize that whole project. That's why I still think it's important to talk about. But like acknowledging the role that the Red Army, the Soviet Union, and Stalin himself played in defeating fascism was completely uncontroversial. And you see how successful that propaganda campaign has been. The fact that like so many years later, we're repeating all the same mistakes. We've got all these former Soviet republics where you can't fly the Soviet flag to celebrate the victory over fascism. You have this widespread belief here in Canada, the United States, that Stalin was just as bad as Hitler, or the Soviet Union was just as bad as Nazi Germany, and they're two sides of the same coin. Like, this is a widespread belief. The idea that they had a military alliance in the run-up to the war, while of course the West was against fascism. You see how successful this like revisionist propaganda campaign has been. It's really disheartening, I think. And you see over time how this legacy has been just chipped away at until just nothing is left of it anymore.
To place Russian communism and Nazi fascism on the same moral place, in the measure that both are totalitarian, is superficial at best, fascism at worst. Anyone who insists on this comparison could very well be considered a Democrat, but deep in their heart a fascist is already there. Naturally, they will only fight fascism in a superficial and hypocritical way while they save all their hatred for communism. Sounds a little bit familiar, doesn't it? Sounds a little bit familiar. Thank you so much, Dimitri. Like, there's huge VE Day celebrations in Britain and elsewhere, as there should be. Like, doesn't it say so much about our society and the way that, this question of like whether we really were against fascism or not? When we don't even celebrate this. Has Brandon tweeted about VE Day? Has Justin Trudeau tweeted about VE Day? Maybe they have, but they've just whitewashed in a way to avoid mentioning Russia. But I don't even think I've seen any. We don't have parades. We don't do anything. We don't do anything to celebrate this monumental victory. Where are our celebrations? It doesn't have to be just this Russian thing. We almost mock the Russians for celebrating this now to this day, which is fucking unreal, the way that we fetishize World War II in our society. Where's our VE Day parade? Why don't we have one? I thought we were against fascism. I thought we celebrated Canada's role in defeating fascism in World War II. I thought we celebrated America's role in defeating the Nazis. Where's our parades? Why don't we have parades? Why don't we have a day off? Why don't we fucking do something? Why don't we do fucking anything at all to acknowledge this? Does anyone ask themselves these questions? It's all part of the same narrative. Why is the Soviet flag being banned in places like Ukraine or Estonia or these other places where these Soviet heroes liberated them and defeated fascism? Why don't we celebrate this? Why do we insist on teaching people that the Soviet Union and Stalin were just as bad as the Nazis? Why do we insist on doing that? We're building a Victims of Communism monument in Ottawa, Ontario, in our nation's capital, right near the Parliament buildings. Why don't we celebrate this? Why don't we have a VE Day parade? We should. I thought we were. It's frustrating because you see how our political leaders talk out two sides of their mouths. We fetishize World War II. We fetishize our role in World War II. It becomes this big part of our nationalist myth. And then on the actual day of victory against the Nazis we don't have a thing to say about it. And we're actually building monuments to the fucking people the Nazis that were killed. We're building monuments to SS divisions in our country.
while we simultaneously love to jerk off about how fucking anti-fascist we are. Does anyone see like what's going on here? You know, you see our actual values. You know, it shines through in this kind of stuff. In the US, we're breastfed the anti-communism from birth. I didn't even find out about the Red Army defeating the Nazis until a Russian coworker told me. No, it's like you grow up in America or Canada, and it's like, yeah, of course, America. It was like John Wayne. John Wayne flew across to Germany and 1v1 Hitler and took him out. You know? And you see all the World War II movies and all that shit that's been going on for just decades and decades, and that's what people think. Yeah, and then we tear down the monuments in former Soviet countries and we celebrate that. It's pretty fucking sick. Yeah, you learn General Patton defeated the Nazis. That's right. You know what I mean, though? It's like if we're going to pretend to like uphold that legacy, I mean, I'm actually curious to look now. I'm going to look at Justin Trudeau's tweets right now. Has Justin Trudeau tweeted about the defeat of the Nazis, which Canada played a role in? Brave Canadian troops were part of it. Obviously played not as much of an outsized role as the Soviet Union. Canada was a part of it, though. Are we celebrating this today? We've been making progress for Canadians. We're taking action to prevent gun crime and gang violence. Is this all it's going to be? Today we celebrate Europe Day. What the fuck is Europe Day? With our European Union partners and reflect on our shared vision of a better future. Today, Canada and the EU are working to support Ukraine. And we will continue to do so. Is that as close as we're going to get to a VE Day statement? Oh, we're going to celebrate Europe Day and talk about how we're arming these fascists in eastern Ukraine proudly. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing about VE Day. Oh, wait, here we go. May 8th. Okay. Look, I said there was Justin Trudeau retweeted a tweet from Lawrence Macaulay. Today marks Victory in Europe Day. Over 1 million Canadians served in the Second World War, more than 45,000 giving their lives. We must never forget their bravery and sacrifice. And you know what? I actually agree with that. Like I said, it's not as much of a role as what the Soviet Union played. We should. I absolutely agree. We should never forget their bravery and sacrifice. The Canadian troops that went and fought World War II and contributed to this legacy, we absolutely shouldn't forget their bravery and sacrifice. But what does, in fact, not only forget their bravery and sacrifice, but totally pisses on the fucking legacy, completely just like fucking pisses on their graves, is the fact that we have, since that time, worked diligently to restore fascism to its former strength and completely revise the history. And now we're supporting these Banderites and fascists, like materially, with material aid and weapons and training, these people who helped carry out the Holocaust. I think when you arm and train and fund people that are successors to that legacy, that genocidal fascist legacy, you're absolutely pissing on the graves of these 45,000 Canadians that very bravely and correctly fought against fascism and died doing so. But again, that's the extent of what we saw from Justin Trudeau in that.
tomorrow, Tuesday, will be treated as Victory in Europe Day.
Where's our parade? We get one retweet from our prime minister with like a tweet with like 500 likes celebrating this. Why don't we get a parade? We should have a parade on this. That's something. It's a cause worth celebrating. Do we really care about these 45,000 Canadians that died? It doesn't seem like we do. You get a one tweet. You get a one tweet from a random Liberal MP. That's all you get. That's how much we honor and respect their sacrifice. Again, while we're building monuments to the fucking fascists that they were fighting. That's what we're doing. While we're simultaneously, talking about honoring and respecting their legacy. Why don't we honor and respect them with an actual proper celebration or understanding of what this victory means? Folks, as you know, I would not ever advocate for any kind of illegal activity or vandalism or anything like that on this program. I hope you all understand that. I hope, though, when if they ever do finally finish this, this ugly victims of communism monument that we've built, which is a monument to fascism, right? I had a tweet about this today, or I was reminded of a tweet from a couple years ago, which I think has helped me understand a lot of things, When you know what anti-communism is just a code word. It's a code word for fascist, anti-communist. So when you're building this anti-communist monument, it's really easy to just understand that as a fascist monument. It becomes a lot more clear, And I would never advocate for anyone doing anything illegal, obviously, but I certainly wouldn't be upset if when this fascist monument in Ottawa is finished, if people showed that the respect that I think it deserves. They sided with the Japanese in Korea and China. They immediately sided with the fascists in Greece, Italy, France, and even fucking Western Germany. And again, I don't want to disrespect the legacy of the Canadians or Americans that fought in this war, right? But I think what you're describing, Johnny, that has disrespected their legacy more than anything else. They immediately went back to working with the very people that these guys were fighting. And continued that process of murder and colonialism and genocide across the world. By explaining how America basically just put different people in charge of the Japanese occupation and told it to get back to work. And then, of course, when the North has something to say about that, as many people in the South that were being victimized by this military dictatorship enforced by America and being administered by the exact same colonial Japanese. And then the North wants to liberate their country from that again. And then we say, well, they caused the Korean War by invading. It's so fucking sick. It is so sick. We blame the North Koreans for invading, and then we start the war. So, well, we had to kill 2 million Koreans because they started the war. Completely ignore. Again, people love to just completely ignore every single event that led up to these things, right? We talked about Molotov-Ribbentrop. Every event that led up to that, completely erased, completely ignored, completely forgotten. Same thing with the North actually crossing that 38th parallel and that conflict officially beginning. Everything prior to that, completely forgotten. Absolutely. It's a complete inversion of reality. It's abuser logic. And yeah, it sounds very familiar to a certain conflict going on today. All of this stuff is so relevant to everything that's going on right now with Russia and Ukraine. Yeah, exactly. Just vibing as a completely sovereign, independent country this bastion of freedom and democracy and LGBTQ rights right prior to February 2022. Context is meaningless if you don't follow historical materialism. And who was one of the primary socialist writers and thinkers to advance this idea of historical and dialectical materialism? Who was that again? I can't remember who exactly that was. I wonder why it's been such an important project to completely erase this person's legacy and present this distorted view of the same person. I wonder why that's been important, why that's an important project. That'll do for today, folks. I gotta go, okay? If anyone else wants to subscribe, wants to support the content, wants to support TRRS, I could use, any help I can get.
You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Any help I can get.
Happy Victory Day.
Thank you, DJ Chimp, for the 10 months of Tier 1. If anyone else wants to support the community and support the work that I do, it's $5 per month. It's completely free of charge if you have an Amazon Prime account. Get all the emotes. Join the wonderful community that we got going on here. And support the content, support the channel, support the work that I do around Twitch. If you think this perspective is important, I know I don't always feel like my views on a lot of these subjects are exactly widely held in our society, to say the least. If you think it's important that someone is out here on Twitch articulating this kind of viewpoint, the only way I'm able to do so is through the extremely generous support of the people in this community. So if you can, folks, please subscribe or give subs or support the work that I do here on Twitch. I really appreciate it a lot. If you're looking for content tomorrow, there's some wild shit going down in Alberta with these wildfires. Certain evacuated weirdos are planning a convoy to ram the roadblock and return to their homes. I would like to talk about that. That sounds real, like both the wildfires, which seem completely extremely intense and dangerous and scary, mixed with that kind of convoy mentality, I think is a pretty toxic mix. We were talking about, I did bring it up the other day, I think yesterday, talking about how these kind of reactionaries, even when they see the climate change crisis, the climate crisis really unfolding in the form of these wildfires, rather than admitting they were wrong, they're just going to start blaming Antifa or blame climate activists or saboteurs. And the way that rather than re-examine their reactionary beliefs, they're just going to double down. That seems like a really good example of that exact phenomenon. Yeah, that's what I mean, Pathogen. Yeah. So tomorrow we can talk about that, and I do want to talk about this whole Chinese interference story and CSIS and the role that it's playing in manufacturing this kind of hysterical climate about Chinese interference in our politics. Can we get above 20? That's my question, folks. Will one generous chatter get us over that really modest goal? That is the question. That is the question, folks.
We simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Thank you, Cicerum. Thank you. Thank you for the 100 friend coin. And thank you, Pathogen. Thanks, Pathogen, for the 2 gifted subs.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Once again, folks, I'm sorry for the hustling. I know you understand this. We don't have to do this big song and dance every time. I don't like it any more than you do. Let's just say that. How about that, Diego? Okay, just finding someone to raid here. And even though we made it over 20, if anyone else wants to subscribe and join the community, you're still welcome to do so. Don't let me stop you. Is Johnny, are you still in the chat? Is Midwestern Marks just fully canceled now? That's my question. I still have a soft spot for Eddie from Midwestern Marks, but I don't know if I can raid them anymore, or if they're officially canceled, or if they've gone into too far into the LaRoucheite depths. The whole Elon thing has been wild too. I mean, it's just I'm limited in the amount of time I have to talk about things, and I wanted to spend some time talking about VE Day and this whole revisionist history today.
The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that they are getting bailed out 100%. The shareholders of the banks themselves are taking a hit. And the FDIC itself is taking a hit in terms of these losses. But these high-income depositors are getting back 100% of their money. Now, who are these folks? The average American household, the median American.
It was funny to see his tweet finding out the Pat Stokes. I have no idea what they're talking about. Which is that? I didn't see that. I don't know. I still like Eddie from Midwestern Marks. I do.
Force of the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve, and the FDIC says that this top 10%.
If nothing else, he's got a really solid materialist and dialectical grasp on history.
Of asset holders should not lose any money in any circumstance, and they will, deploy tens of billions.
Anyway, even though I still like Eddie, I don't know if I want to raid because it's going to be controversial.
I mean, the FDIC, in terms of the losses they took and the work they did to kind of restructure these assets to be taken over.
There's anti-land back stuff. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. The indigenous rights and land back is. I talked about the ways that LGBTQ issues and women's rights have been weaponized by the liberal establishment. You see land back as well. There's these NGOs or these liberal institutions are starting to use land back as a way to kind of again, it's kind of whitewash their own actions. Then people have this reactionary understanding of it. We still got to give the land back though, folks. We still have to. Got to give it back.